to have all of you here with us today. I am really looking forward to today's content, just as I do on the first Wednesday of every month. We are going to hang out for just a minute or two to make sure that everyone can join and get settled in, maybe get a beverage, a snack to have on hand. Maddy and I are coming to you from our lovely office here in a very sunny but a bit smoky Bozeman, Montana. Maddy, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good, Amy. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you everyone for joining. I can't wait to share with you some of our best practices.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I got a sneak preview of the slides. It's going to be really interesting, just really great information for all of us to have in our lives. Maddy, how's your puppy doing?
My puppy is currently at the vet right now.
Oh no.
Procedure done, but he should be just fine.
Can you come to XYPN Live?
I wish. But really, my puppy actually has been a motivator for a lot of what we're going to talk about today around burnout and boundaries and balance.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're just about a minute and a half in here to the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Arno, and I am a lead business development specialist on the XYPN sales team. Today, I am happy to host this webinar, Burnout, Boundaries, and Balance, with XYPN Senior Director of Member Success, Maddy Roche. Maddy is going to present for the next 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will open it up for questions. I do want to point out just a couple of quick housekeeping things to note. If you hadn't had the opportunity to submit a question beforehand, you can do so in the second tab below the chat. We're happy to address anything that comes up during the presentation. We are also going to do a couple polls, and that's the third tab down. So when you're prompted by us, you'll go to that poll and answer any questions that we have for you. One last quick, we do host these free webinars every month, so be sure to mark your calendar and join us on Wednesday, October 13th for Ask Me Anything with our very own CEO and co-founder, Alan Moore. So just look in the chat to register for that. And that's all I've got for you. So Maddy, it is all you.
Thank you, Amy, so much. I'm excited, everyone, to be here. It's always such a gift to be asked to share some of my, what I feel is kind of a personal side of me on the theme of what I've been really thinking about as being kind of the theme of the softer side of financial planning, the softer side of being an entrepreneur. Talking about burnout and balance and boundaries is something I feel really passionate about. And I'm honestly really excited for those of you who are here to let me know if this was helpful. I could talk about this stuff all day. But thank you, Amy, for that nice introduction. I am Maddy Roche. I'm the Senior Director of Member Success here at XYPN, but I've also been with XYPN since nearly day one, which has allowed me over the past 7.5 years to witness a whole bunch of burnout, not only in myself, but in the members I've worked with, in the employees that I've worked with. And I've also seen the benefits of incredible balance and the impact that boundaries can have. I come from the perspective that we, our individual selves, are ultimately the most important thing to us. That may make me sound like I'm preaching selfishness, but I am. Being selfish is something I want to give you permission to be as we talk about this. I feel like I've become almost obsessed with mental wellness and the things I can do to combat kind of this never-ending thing called life that we all are facing together. And I really encourage you each to think about the things you can change, the things you can do, the little micro shifts and the mega shifts that you can make in your life to become a better person, become a better business owner, become a better advisor to your clients. So that's the perspective I'm coming from, that I'm not about outsourcing boundary making and burnout recovery to anyone other than you. And you're going to hear kind of that theme throughout this presentation. So just know that. All right, folks. Thanks. I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover. I'm going to start with kind of this high level question of your why. Why are we here today? Why do you want to serve clients? Why do you want to be in a giving profession? I'm going to talk through some burnout scenarios. Some things are going to sound really familiar as I talk through those things. And I'm going to give some tips on how to prevent burnout. And then I'll spend a nice portion of time talking about setting boundaries, what they sound like, and give you some tips for balance that I know have worked in my life, members' lives, and other folks' lives. I also want to say that in the next minute or two, grab a piece of paper. We'll be together for just under an hour. And I'm going to prompt you with a lot of hypothetical questions. And I want to encourage you to just jot down some things that come to mind, okay? If you feel very scared of doing that like writing the boundary you actually want to make is too scary, you can burn the paper up or flush it down the toilet at the end. No one will ask to look at it. But I do ask that you bring out a pen and paper, because there are going to be some things that I want you to do with me while we talk through some of these questions. And you may find at the end of this webinar that you feel a little bit more comfortable with who you are, why you're here, why you don't want burnout, and what you can do to avoid it in the future. So that's my tip for you. So let's talk about why you are launching your firm. We have a poll here that we can launch in a minute or two. But I really want you to sit back for just a moment and think about, why are you interested in being a financial planner, running your own business, launching a firm? Some of the reasons down here, freedom and flexibility and ownership and to make an impact, are all real common themes that I hear from members and advisors just like you. But one of the kind of the whole kind of subtext to that is that we want to be a better us. We want to live a more meaningful life. We want to live a more substantive, genuine existence here on this beautiful planet. We want to make an impact. Let's go ahead and launch that poll. I'd be interested to see what some folks have to say about this. So we'll let you fill out really what is your main driver here. Okay, go ahead and vote, friends. Go ahead and vote. And while we wait for a couple votes to roll in, just jot down some things. What was the original initiative here for you to start your own firm and to serve clients the way that you're serving? You all are in a giving profession. That means that there's a whole lot that goes along with that. You're going to be holding space for other people on a continual basis, which means you have to be extra clear on your why about being here. Okay, let's close that poll. Okay, looks like there's kind of a close tie to the freedom with what you want and how you want it, and making an impact. I'm not surprised by any of those. But guess what, folks? What do we compromise if we end up burnt out? We compromise our why. We compromise our ability to have freedom and flexibility. We compromise our ability to make an impact. When we experience burnout, we're more likely to show up inauthentically. We're more likely to make mistakes. We're more likely to take clients just because we need it and we're under pressure. And that kind of residual impact that has on our presence throughout the day to our family and to our friends and to our clients can be really big. So I talk about the why in not a novel sense. You guys have all kind of written, I'm sure, some mission statements for yourself and your firm. But as we talk about boundaries, it's so important to prioritize your why and get really clear on what are you actually trying to achieve here. And it's okay if it's a mix of all those things in the polls. But what we want to know is that we don't want to sacrifice any of those. So let's get real. Life's really hard. In 2020 and 2021 were extra difficult. Although we have these great esoteric whys of our planning profession, we also have to be really gentle to ourselves that life, and especially life in our current day, is extra hard. The fact that you guys are all here shows that you're interested in learning about this, and I really commend you for that. But let's also get really, really clear that some of us have kids at home. I have a puppy at home, and boy, has that taught me about boundaries and burnout. You all are being asked to pivot companies to a virtual world. You may have children at home, not going to school. I think most schools are open, but you're getting the picture here. Life has been extra hard, and it's going to continue to be hard. And that's, again, goes back to this idea that we have to prioritize ourselves so that we don't end up getting burnt out and not really having clear boundaries of where I end and where you start and what the client's needs are and what your needs are. Things get really messy, really gray, and very, very uncomfortable if we're unable to communicate clearly about what we need. And before we can do that, we have to get really, really clear on defining what we need. So let's dive in. What does burnout feel like? Okay, I'm interested in this and how the results pan out. So take your time and go ahead and jot down some things, if you got your pen and paper here after you vote, about your most recent feeling of burnout. When did you know it was creeping in? When did you feel it? Let's go ahead and see that. Great. Keep on voting if you want, but thank you. Seems pretty even across the board from mental and physical. And it actually looks like mentally you guys feel it first, which is really, really interesting. And I'm not surprised. Your brain is the muscle we are activating so frequently when we sit down to work. A lot of us sit in chairs all day, so we aren't necessarily as connected with our physical bodies as we are our mental bodies. I do want to, give a little shout out to the folks who don't know yet when they have it, but know that they have it. I was there once as well. And maybe after this webinar, you'll feel a little bit more connected to being able to identify what those things feel like. But the whole purpose with this poll is to give you some credit. Burnout is a real thing. You are experiencing it mentally and physically. And there is a lot that we don't know is actually creating burnout in our bodies. And this is where I kind of get Maddy woo-woo a bit, but it's all kind of connected. It all is connected to your nervous system. When you are burnt out, that means you've been under chronic stress. You've been under chronic fatigue. We find ourselves not keeping up with our physical needs. We may fall back into addiction or dropping off different, we may feel like we want to project more. We may feel like we can't focus. We may feel like we can't get out of bed. That is your nervous system saying, I cannot tolerate anything more. I need to find a way to get some of the same way trauma is held in our body, some of the stress that's held in our body out. And what I want to kind of define here for you is that it is in fact a nervous system issue. And because it is a nervous system issue, you can attend to it, which means you can make yourself feel better after burnout. And you can learn it. You can learn about what it means to feel mentally and physically exhausted to the point that you can get ahead of it and prevent it. But what's so important to recognize is that in your nervous system, you have to attend to it. You have to give it safety and healing and gentleness and time to be able to recuperate so you can get back out there in the world and serve the clients the way that you want. So burnout is real. You're not going crazy when you really want to sleep in until noon and not see your kids and not walk your puppy and not serve your clients. That's all real. And because it's real, you need to be super, super gentle to yourself and be honest with yourself. And therefore, we kind of get into these conversations about how do we do that with ourselves and others. But what I'm most interested in, what I've kind of dedicated my past few years to in my personal life, is really learning about it. How do I know when a stomach pain is actually me feeling chronic stress? How do I know when I'm lacking sleep, I'm actually really disrupted in my work-life balance? These are all things that we can begin to note throughout our days. And the same way you strategize on your business, I want you to think about strategizing on your calendar and on yourselves. And that's what we're going to dive into as we continue this conversation. Another poll just to keep it fancy and spicy. these are some of the kind of core reasons that once we find ourselves at burnout, we're like, oh, I just don't have time. Or, oh, I just hate my life and I hate my work, or I'm just not seeing any progress. Let's go ahead and launch this poll and see most recently, what have you felt like was the major catalyst to you feeling burnt out? Knowing, of course, the collection of all three likely was it. Where do you really feel like you are getting burnt out? Is it a time thing? Is it a motivation thing? Is it a prioritization thing? Getting pulled in multiple directions. Boy, okay. And there's not a lot of folks that feel like they're working and not seeing progress. All right, there's some folks. Good, good, good. Okay, let's go ahead and round that poll out. Being pulled in multiple directions. I wrote that line for you. I knew it. I've talked to thousands of advisors over these years, and I know exactly that issue. Being pulled in multiple directions. And I'm glad the votes came out that way, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about in the remainder of this conversation is about time. When I think about those three, I'm seeing time and your why, and I'm seeing prioritization. And time is, you don't have enough of it. There is a finite number of hours in the week. There's a finite number of hours in the day. And boy, do we all have these great, huge goals about being able to be great friends and great leaders and great teammates, and maybe network here and there at a NAPFA event, maybe go to an XYPN meetup. Folks, it is hard. What you are doing, the industry you're in, period, whether you've started your own business or not, is hard. And you will feel like you are being pulled in multiple directions over and over and over again. So I'm ready to get tangible with you and give some advice. One of the things I do want to talk about just quickly is that although those three things, those three kind of themes are very common, I want us to consider micro events for just a moment and how they can add up. Just like microaggressions can add up in our body in terms of trauma, micro events, and I made this up. I mean, I know the truth of it, but I don't have a term for it. I'm calling them micro events. They add up. This is, folks, having, say, the puppy analogies in my head, but having a dog that needs a massive amount of attention and barks a lot. I may think, oh, I just have a puppy, but actually that's triggering a whole lot in my body. It's making me feel like I'm not showing up. It's making me feel like I'm a bad dog parent. But I'm also thinking about examples where a conversation with a client doesn't go well. Maybe they share something really heavy out of nowhere and you have to hold space for it. Maybe you get feedback from a teammate or a boss. That happened to me most recently. And that's actually what made me write this slide, is that throughout our day, whether we can plan for it or not, life is life. And there are these little things that can add up in our bodies and make our minds feel totally taxed. Getting tough feedback is one of those things that I don't put a Friday afternoon to say, receive tough feedback. It just happened on an idle Wednesday. And all of a sudden I felt like I needed 2 hours off. I couldn't look at my computer. I needed to go on a walk. And so that got me really thinking about, what are these other things that you as entrepreneurs are experiencing? That kind of ever feeling of, compliance. Deal with it, folks. We got to get you a compliance program so you don't every day worry about compliance. It's kind of that bias towards action. We want to be able to address these micro events quickly, swiftly, heal them, rejuvenate from them, and get on with our days. But I wanted this slide to just give credit to kind of those little things. Getting kids out, onto the school bus. That's all very hard. You might want to look at individual things throughout your life, personally and professionally, that just irk you a little bit, make you feel derailed, not in control. I don't joke about this when I say that my full-time job outside of XYPN, even before XYPN, is making sure I feel good. My whole life revolves around me feeling good so that I can actually show up at my work and with my friends, with my partner, and be able to actually feel good and be good. So just a little credit to those little things, and go ahead and jot down on your piece of paper right now, what are some of those things? I find that if I can just wipe down my counters at night, that is one way to feel a little bit better. And that is on my inventory of, how do I heal? How do I recuperate from kind of this chronic feeling of life? There are things and practices that we can get into. So, skipped a slide. My first tip here, if you can't tell already, is about knowing yourself. And this is not comfortable. It's why not every member in the XYPN network and in our community are on this webinar right now. People don't want to know about themselves. Knowing yourselves is very, very scary. You ask someone to sit down with their thoughts for 15, 20 minutes and meditate, uncomfortable. Okay, I don't blame you for that. But knowing yourself is one of the most beautiful things you can possibly do in our existence. We have one shot and one opportunity to engage in this incredible, beautiful world of ours. And if you miss out on the opportunity to learn about who the real Maddy is, who the real Paul is, who the real Arlene is, you will really, really miss out. So throughout the rest of this conversation, take that piece of paper and do something scary and begin writing a couple things down. What are your triggers? I need quiet time at night. It's just part of my life. I don't do TV. When I'm sharing a space with people, I tell them that. I don't do TV. I can't, the barrage of noise is too much for me. What are the things that are very, very hard? Losing a client to death would be very hard. But what if someone quit on you? What if someone gave you feedback about not feeling enough value from your services? And then begin to think about, what are your recovery mechanisms? What do you do to feel good? We all have spent our lives existing and trying to flirt with feeling good, but we can get really hard and clear about what makes us feel good. And some of us feel good if we keep routine. Some of us like a lot more flexibility. We saw in the polls, a lot of you guys want to have some flexibility on how you do things. So this is your chance. Does a bath make you feel good? Does going and looking in your dog's eyes make you feel good? It can go from little to big. Sure, a 2-month sabbatical feels great too, but think about the range of things. If you have a couple micro events throughout the day, the quickest thing may be to go out on a run. If you have serious hard quarters where you're making major changes in your business, raising fees, firing clients, you may need 2 weeks off. So think about when you have your triggers and the things that make you somatically feel something. Your pulse races, your fingers get cold, your face becomes hot. Those triggers, you want to think about, what does it make me, what does it do? What can I do to make me come back down to a neutral level? And having a variety of those things in an inventory that you can hang up right at your desk could be something really beautiful for you. And then of course, you all are going to be starting businesses if you haven't already. What do you want more of? A lot of you said that you wanted the freedom to do what you want. So what is it that you want to do? You want to dedicate 30% of your time to pro bono work? Great. Do not schedule client meetings to reach 40 hours a week, because then you won't achieve your goals. This is about deep diving into your priorities and your why. Go back to your why here. But what I really want to give you permission to do is be selfish. Write down what you need. And I'm going to give you a couple options of how to get to know yourself. As a successful recipient of somatic therapy, I highly recommend getting a therapist. Some of the best XYPN members I know preach about going to therapy. It's where you uncover your inner self and what you really want, and get a coach, a business coach, an accountability coach. Maybe engage in an accountability working group. Get a couple friends that hold you accountable and mirror back to you. Maybe shine light on some of the areas of yourself you aren't totally familiar with yet, but are evident to the people in your community. Somatics is body work. That's really becoming connected to our nervous system, understanding what is my body telling me when I'm in different situations. How do I control it and regulate it? Meditation. I've meditated for years. I highly, 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 highly recommend spending 5, 10, 15 minutes of quiet time just to witness your monkey mind and see how much noise you put up in front of yourself before you can actually get to some of the harder work that you do. Do body work. Again, getting connected to our physical body is so important. Your brain is of course important, but it's part of your anatomy. It's part of your physical body. We're one unit, we're one body. And I really encourage you to get to know it and not be afraid of it. It's all very, very beautiful. And then we got to get into a little bit of our work. We have to know our work. And since a long, long time ago, I've kind of been preaching this idea, and I think J.D. Bruce at Abacus was the original person to put this idea in my mind, but it's this matrix of what are you good at? What are you bad at? What do you love doing? And what do you hate doing? I do this in my personal life, and I do this matrix in my professional life anytime I'm feeling a little bit of burnout. I want to just get real clear again, give myself real permission to hate aspects of my job, to hate aspects of my personal life, and then to admit that I'm really shitty. Pardon my language. I'm really bad at certain parts of my job, and I'm really bad at certain parts of my personal life. This kind of matrix work, and go ahead and draw, a line and a line. And good, bad, what do you hate, what do you love? And then begin prioritizing and thinking about and being really honest about those things that you love and thinking about the things that you really, really are good at. This avenue of being really honest about your work, I've talked to many, many, many XYPN advisors over the years, and the people that get clear early on about the things they're not good at, the things they're bad at, they do not like, and then they do something about it, is where I see them be most successful. And then, of course, that question of what gets to you. What about your work is just like, no, I can't, I don't want to be X. I don't want to work with X. I don't want to work for less than X. These are all things that we can just be honest about. So let's talk about how to do that. Well, folks, you outsource, avoid, and pivot. 3 of my favorite words in the whole world. When you look at what you're bad at and what you don't like doing, that is your segment in that matrix that you want to outsource. It's also that segment in the matrix that you want to avoid. I was recently on a working group with some XYPN members, and it was a networking event, and an advanced advisor, Leanne Michaud, wonderful advisor, said early on she felt like she needed to do content marketing. Guess what? Not everyone is good at content marketing. So what she did was really early on, she avoided it and pivoted from her original plan. She's not going to be a content marketer, and she's avoiding it. She's just not doing it. Guess what? Leanne is pretty darn successful with what she has maximized and minimized in her business. I want you all to have a lot of permission to outsource, avoid, and pivot at any time. And this matrix is important to do on an ongoing basis because it will allow you some time and flexibility for things to change. You may end up after 4 years of working with a certain kind of client, have a whole new list of things you can do content marketing about. But when you're brand new and green in it, you may not have a whole lot of topics to write about. I also love this idea of flow. And we talk about it a lot here at work. We talk a lot about it in my personal life, but take a flow journal. The Design Your Life book were designers that really wrote about how to design your life from a design perspective. And it had something like a flow journal in it where you're really thinking about who are the people I was with when I was feeling great? What room and environment was I in when I was feeling great? What was I working on when I was feeling great? What kind of accountability did I have when I was working on those things? Those are all really important questions and journal type entries that you want to be having. Take a notebook and make it your own private one where you write about this stuff. What did you love about your day? When did you feel like work was not work? Because that's what we're shooting for. And then we need to know your time, friends, because again, it's a finite amount and we never know when we won't have any more. So another thing we can do is take some inventory. What are your buckets? I kind of think about business time. I think about my idle time. I think about my family time, my friends' time, my lifetime. My lifetime is like, okay, someone's got to clean my vacuum once in a while. I got to do that. The worst. But that idle time, you do want some idle time. You also want some creative time. What are your main buckets that you want to be actually spending time doing? Because what you don't want are a bunch of buckets on topics you don't like. Again, that's that matrix you want to go back to and begin avoiding, pivoting, or outsourcing over it. And then take a little inventory of where you are with it. If you wrote out your ideal week, and this isn't novel, write out your ideal week, your 9 to 5, your 6 to 3, whatever your time frame is. Where are you now with that? And what are your ideal week look like? What's your ideal quarter look like? A few years ago, I gave myself permission to not think about things on the daily basis. I got to take vitamins. I got to work out. I got to call this person. I got to get all that stuff done in 1 week. I can't think about life on a 1-day plan anymore. 24 hours just isn't enough. So I give myself a whole week to achieve the main components of my buckets. And what I want to talk about for a second is this idea of idle time. I recently just took my iPhone and got really embarrassed about how much time I spend on it. I spend upwards of 2 to 3 hours a day sometimes on my phone. What the heck? How is that possible? That's my own issue. You may have your own issue. You may really like watching television or doing something else, or we all have our vices. Either way, there are actual things we can use and mechanisms to put in place to decrease and train our bodies and minds out of certain things. So I recently put on that timer on my phone where it tells me after 20 minutes on Instagram, I'm shutting off because you reached your limit. Guess who doesn't spend any more than 20 minutes on Instagram now? It also can warn you to take 5 minutes to meditate. It can also warn you to get out and run. Use some of this beautiful technology that we have in our world and leverage it to start making some sense of your actual time. What I don't want is 3 hours of my idle time to be used looking at Instagram. I want 3 hours to do body work and to have really meaningful connections with people. So one of my tips is to time block in advance. Make sure that you're actually putting time on the calendar to do the things you need to do. One of the best things I feel is when I look at my calendar and I know I'm busy and then I see I saved 3 hours at the end of the week to actually do one of the projects I needed to do. Protect your time. Use a timer. Begin seeing how long it takes you to actually get done tasks. Use those idle times of 5 to 10 minutes between meetings to knock out a couple things. We often spend 10 times as much time thinking about a project or a task than it actually takes to do the task. So again, this is that bias towards action. David Allen wrote about it and how to get things done. If it's a 2-minute task, knock it out. Leverage your phone, get your phone and your friends and your accountability group to hold you accountable and move on with this idle time. And then of course we want to prioritize. It's an entrepreneurial operating system. I recently had a podcast with Jerry Kaufman, our implementer from EOS. That helps us set quarterly rocks. So all of a sudden for 3-4 years now at XYPN, we work on this quarterly basis. And I've absorbed the quarterly rhythm in my personal life. And so every time we're wrapping up an end of quarter, I'm thinking about my next quarter. What do I really want to do this quarter? What do I want to do at work and at my home and in my personal life? And I begin prioritizing it. Again, we're actively working on these things, which means one of your time buckets needs to be strategy on yourself and calendar. Get on a system that works. I don't care if it's the EOS model. I don't care if it's an accountability group. You need to be able to hold yourself accountable to some of it. And as you prioritize the things you really want, family time. I don't want to look at my phone until 10 a.m. every morning. You need to respect some of those things. And now we're going to talk, of course, about boundaries. So boundaries are fun boundaries. I always find boundaries really helpful if I can hear some of them and hear examples. So I want to share you on some of those things. You all got into this because you want to do what you want to do, how you want to do it. And I commend you for that. That is life. That is freedom. That is why a lot of you become entrepreneurs. But one of the groups that you serve, one of the hats you wear is that you are a client-facing advisor, which means, again, you're in a giving profession. You're going to have clients that go through really hard things. They're going to ask you really hard questions. And that means you have to be really, really protective of how you handle client relationships. Because again, the most important person in that relationship is you. You may want to say it's your client, but that is a lack of boundaries. That is a meshing, a merging of two people into priority. You are the priority, always. So when it comes to working with clients, you need to be very, very clear on your availability. Whether you tell them you don't answer emails before 10 a.m. or you don't, it's up to you. But you need to be really, really clear with yourself about not checking your emails at 2:30 in the morning and not checking your emails when you're out to dinner with your spouse on the one date night you prioritized. That means that your clients and your clients know no different. If you only accept sales meetings or new prospect meetings on Mondays, no one's going to ask any questions. If you only take and schedule client meetings on Thursdays and Fridays because that works for your schedule, your clients aren't going to have a hissy fit. Just do it. One of the things that we do at XYPN is take sabbaticals. And I take sabbaticals in terms of week-long vacations. And so what I like to do and what I encourage you to do is be really confident about that to your clients. Hey, one of the ways that I set up boundaries for myself in this business and be able to serve you the best is that I take a week-long sabbatical every quarter. And so I'll be reaching out for a meeting before that. You just lay that groundwork. The more you can come to the table with clear expectations of how you want to work with them, the more they'll respect you and understand it. And maybe they too will take sabbaticals. One of the boundaries I see a lot of members avoid is saying, I'm not the right fit for you. During your first 20 or so clients, you're tempted to take any client. And let me tell you, one of the fastest ways to burn out is to work with people you don't like. And I will reiterate that over and over and over again to members, that avoiding a monthly retainer is hard, but trust me, you will appreciate it. So begin getting used to saying no, saying I'm not the right fit. It's also really clear to just say I'm raising my fees in the fall, and then holding some space. Confidence is an incredible, incredible tactic when you're setting up boundaries. The more we as humans can set up boundaries, the more we empower other people to set up boundaries. What it feels like to hold ourselves into a boundary means that we have to respect it and that there's a repercussion if we don't follow it. In the client scenario, I can't really think of repercussions for clients, but you could tell them, hey, you've been reaching out too frequently. It's more than what I've scheduled for, and unfortunately, I'm not the right fit for you. Play around with language, play around with your schedule, but those are all things you can do with your clients. Friends and family. Oh, that 2-letter word, no. It's so powerful. I wish I could use it more. I think we all do. As I was thinking through boundaries, a lot of friends are like, hey, can we do dinner? Can we go out to a bar? Can we hang out? Can we do something that isn't actually productive for me or achieving any of my goals? And so what I often do is, sure, I'd love to see you, but I got to go to the farmer's market and pick up vegetables. Or sure, I'd love to see you, but how about we go on a hike because I got to get one in the next few days. Play with this. Actually give options to succeeding in both realms with your friends and your family. I most recently heard from a wonderful friend and teammate talk about how she had to fake going downstairs so her toddler didn't think that she was in the house so she could get some work done. That is a boundary with your friends and families. I'm going to pretend like I'm leaving so I can go to the basement to work. That is a boundary with your spouse and your child and your partner, your friends and your family. I'd love to catch up, but I'd like to do it when I'm present. How does next Saturday sound to you? Something like that. And then you really have to think about how much time do you want to be dedicating to family and friends? If they are part of your why, if being a full-time friend and family member, which is one of my goals, is my why, that means I need to be creating massive space in my other worlds to allow for the space to take care of my friends and family, which again goes to prioritization and time blocking, making sure that I'm setting up a schedule that has check-ins and notes written to the people I want to stay in touch with. And then some of you manage teams. This is a really, really big one. If you're an employer, you need to set expectations with your team and how you work, and then ask them to do the same. I send Slacks at night because that's when I work best, but I don't check Slack before noon. It's just telling people how you do things. And then there's not a lot of gray area. People that say, oh, can I get 5 minutes with you? Or can I do this? Or they just tell you they need a meeting with you. You can say, I prefer you send me a calendar invite and a reminder the day before and an agenda. Some of the setting boundaries really does come down to technology. Again, we're in that virtual world, we're in this technology world. And I really, really encourage you to begin pulling away from that chronic feeling we have to be connected. Slack, as much as I love that system, it is endlessly frustrating. I do not have Slack ping me on my phone. I have a teammate that doesn't even have it on her phone. I have to proactively check Slack. I silence different channels in it. Email, I only check twice a day. You don't have to check more than once a day if you don't feel like it. You need to be really, really clear that when we're sitting on Slack or we're sitting in email, that is using up massive, massive brain power to get nothing done. In fact, it's kind of those micro events. Oh, those are all those emails I should have responded to. Oh, I should have done that. Oh, there's that person I don't like. Those are all the parts of our day-to-day that are kind of these like little punches. So minimize it. I recently started implementing tech sabbaticals into my life, where I take a full 48 hours with not looking at any screens, no phone. I try to avoid watches and telling what time of day it is. And my friends, those are some of the most beautiful days of my life. And I don't say that lightly, but giving yourself the opportunity to rise on your own without an alarm, to rise and begin a day without knowing what time or where you're supposed to be is one of the most magical experiences you can have. And as someone who is in such high demand, as a business owner and someone who's serving clients in the capacity you guys serve clients in, you need to be really, 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 really careful that you give yourself some recovery time, okay? And going back to that inventory of things that you need to do. During my tech sabbatical, I just start at the top of my healing list and I go down. I take a bath in the morning, I go for a run, I do this, I do that. I take time with my conversations. I look people in the eye because I'm not looking at my phone. And sharing these kind of ideas is really helpful because not everyone thinks like this and not everyone is as interested as you and I are in this conversation. So I encourage you to share it and begin talking about the things you're doing. Don't be embarrassed that you're putting yourself first. I think the world could become a better place if we all started thinking a little bit more about how do I become the best me possible. So for yourself, do what you need. We are our best guides. But again, give yourself some time and space to think about how do I heal. A lot of us will go and just numb and do what we need to get through another day, but be honest with yourself. I really, really, really hate the pit in the stomach I get on Sunday nights or back in my old career I used to get before I'd come to work. So since I started at XYPN, take Monday morning slowly. I don't want to run into work feeling like, oh, it's the worst day of the week. And sometimes you don't have to look at your phone for the first few hours of the day. I don't look at my phone after 7. I don't do all of these things. I'm just using the I as an example. Keeping a smile file is a really, really beautiful thing. Nancy Blakey, a wonderful sales coach, taught me back in the day, which is if you're ever feeling down or you just don't know why you're here or doing what you're doing, keep a file in your inbox or in a physical file of all the happy things clients have said to you, all the things that people have given you reassurance about, that you're setting boundaries and doing the things you need to do and you're a great advisor. Look at that sometimes. Look at that on a Monday morning, as you know you're going to have a hard week. I'm taking tomorrow to plan for my next quarter. One of my favorite things in the world is to think strategically about the next few quarters of my life. And I encourage you as business owners to do this. It's working on the business and on yourself. And then, of course, my last boundary is sometimes you need to mix wine with a friend and compliance, and that's okay. Those kind of personal things to get the things done that you need to do. You want to maximize what the time you're spending on. You want to minimize the time you're spending on things you don't like, but the things you can't get off your plate, you can make more fun. And of course, fun is something we're all searching a little bit more for. And I hope that this presentation has been helpful to you. That's all I got, folks. Oh, I have one more slide. Thank you. And I have a poll along with it. You can't do this alone. Again, we are selfish creatures by nature, but a lot of us don't want to be. Doesn't mean that we don't have a dream team. I'm really, really, really interested in who you think are some of the most important people you can keep as your dream team. Go ahead and vote on those. Love it. The reason I included financial planner here, my friends, is that if we have our financial house in order and we know what the worst case scenario is and we know we've planned for that, that means that I am being pulled in multiple directions and I can't get traction. Those things should go to the wayside. We should never be working ourselves into the ground if we have a financial plan. You all are financial planners. We should know the power of that. Please, as I wrote this presentation, I thought, God, I want a whole slide on why financial planners need financial planners. Because that feeling of, oh, I'm going to fail. My whole family's going to be out on the streets. I'm going to be I'm going to be an embarrassment. It goes away when you work with a financial planner. And trust me, I work with financial planners, and I can tell you, I don't worry about that stuff now because I have a dream team member on my team that's taking care of that. A coach, hugely important. Teaches you about yourself. A mastermind group, those are free. Those are free. You create that within your network. And a therapist, my friends, a therapist, to see the shadow side of ourselves is one of the most incredible things we can do. And we show up better to everyone we want to impact if we can do that. Thanks for voting. So in conclusion, know your why, know yourself, know your work, know your time, prioritize like your life depended on it, and communicate your needs and protect them with everything you've got. You all are really, really important people. You do really, really important work. And I wouldn't want burnout to take that away. Thank you.
Wow, Maddy, that was so impactful. I'm gonna have to sit with that later today. So we do have a few questions to go through.
Good.
So how do you avoid burnout, but also feel as if you're not falling behind others and your business?
Well, it's kind of that idea that you're taking one step forward and two steps back when you're working in the burnout environment. I'm most worried about you all and burnout and the repercussions it could have on your firm. You do not want to place a bad trade. You don't want to give clients bad advice. You don't want to build a business you hate. All of that, the bad things that could happen by continuing to try to force through burnout are worse than if you were to say, I need 2 weeks off. So be really, really honest about that recovery time. Do you actually need 2 weeks off, or do you just need to not have the kids and the dog for a weekend and you go to a hotel and you get together with your friends? Really understand where that is. But I wouldn't beat yourself up about it, because the worst case scenario of being burnt out and ending up hating your firm and hating your life is way worse, way, way worse.
Thank you. We did have a question about what is body work. Can you go a little bit more into that, please?
Sure. Body work is this idea of moving our bodies. Again, we're animals, we're creatures. We have limbs, we have fingers, we have cells, we have nerves. All of these things need to be activated to be a whole thing. It's why sitting at a desk all day in a cubicle with no natural light is not good for us. Body work is anything from yoga to movement to massage to acupuncture to cup. I mean, any of the things you can do on your body, but it's intentional work being present with your body. I'm always just so amazed as I've dove into some of this stuff on how frightened people are in learning about their bodies. And you can see it, you can tell, and you want to help other people do body work if they haven't done it yet. And it is just, quite frankly, and I don't have a clinical definition for it, but it's anything related to being present with your body.
Lovely, thank you. When you have a lot of variables throughout the day, how do you avoid getting derailed?
Prioritization, time blocking. I forget where it came from, but that idea that if you do this, one or two of the hardest things first in your day, the rest of the day is a breeze. I'm always amazed with how big I make things into. And then when I do it, it only takes like an email and it only takes like 5 minutes. It starts with planning, and at high level, what's your year? What's your rock? What are the vision and the goals of your firm? To then the month, then to the week, and then to the day. And if you can continue, what is most helpful about rocks is that if I have a teammate that says, oh, this new project just came up, a member wants this, I look at my rock and say, guess what? We don't have room for it. We already set our priorities. It doesn't fall in line with it. And that ability to blame it on that, hey, I've already set my goals for this quarter, it just isn't a priority. And also, at XYPN, we're kind of in this phase of our lives where we're doing things just because we've done them before, and we're 7 years into this. So a lot of what's on your list and a lot of what you're being pulled is, oh, I got to write this newsletter. I got to get it out by Thursday. I got to do this. I got to talk to this person because I talk to them every Wednesday. You don't have to do anything. You can just change it if you want. So give yourself some permission to look at that list with clear eyes. Take it out under a tree. Go sit outside and think about it. What's actually important on this list? And if I didn't do it, would my firm actually burn down? Because I have a chance of burning down if I try to do it all. So it's really kind of that prioritization again.
Yeah, that constant evaluation. I love that. How would you make sure what's important doesn't get forgotten about? Is it a checklist? Is it a calendar entry? Like, what works best?
Yeah, that's really interesting because we can talk granular. Are we talking the processes? Of course, there's sending the client plan is probably the most important part of it all, right? You can build it, you can do it. And then if you forget that one, box to check of click the send button, you'd be out sending a client their plan. I don't want to think about it granularly like that. I think it really comes down to every day you should know what are the 2 or 3 biggest things I got to get done today. You should be able to, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, identify what moves the needle forward the most. And I also really like this idea of like, what's the one next little step you can do with things? And that kind of goes back to that David Allen get things done theory of, you don't have to do it all. You just have to write the one thing that needs to get done. I stared at a dead tree in my yard for 2 years straight, friends. Finally, I wrote down what's the next step. Price a new tree. That took me 2 years to do. I finally priced a new tree, and within a weekend, I had a new garden. Sometimes it's just that mental gap of, oh, it's such a big project. So don't let little things turn into big things, and go into your day and week with, if I just got these 3 things done, and that's how we set rocks, is if we only get these rocks done, the company's in a better position. And that's really how you should be thinking about things.
Doesn't Nancy Blakey have the swallow the frog about that, where you get the frog out of the way first and then you're not dreading it all day? And
that's probably where I learned it, was Nancy Blakey. Yes, you just get the hard stuff done. I mean, the first cup of coffee is when I'm knocking out those things I don't want to do, writing the emails that are hard, giving the feedback I don't want to give. Get them done early. And again, this goes back to that first slide of like, it's all you. You're the only one that can do this. You cannot outsource this stuff. You can outsource a lot, but your technical, meaningful list that you have to go into every quarter and day and week of your life, you're the one in the driver's seat.
What's a good book for learning more about time buckets and utilizing them to prioritize what's important?
How to Get Things Done is fabulous. I've read that a number of times. Checklist Manifesto was the first book Alan asked me to read when I joined XYPN. It's just about the importance of checklists and how to stay up to date with them. It's all about surgeons and pilots and how surgeries happen on the wrong side of the body because we forget checklists. But I also want to warn against over processing things. My brain doesn't work that way, but a lot of us feel like, oh, if I could just write the process for this, everything would be better. No, you still got to do it. And I find that people want to write process more than they want to actually do the task. And to me, I don't need a task if you can get the process. I don't need a process if you can get the task done in just a few minutes. So don't get into that world of, oh, everything has to be documented. Although documentation for you guys is of utmost importance. Be really honest. Is this just something you can get done? And go get it done. Perfect.
How can a pleaser personality develop the nerve to set boundaries?
It's a lot of work. I think you should definitely get a coach and a therapist to help you vocalize it, because what it is we don't have confidence in our own, autonomy. We want to give ourselves to everyone else, and that's actually not serving us. But we're looking for confirmation that we're being something to someone else. So that confirmation, that confidence needs to be created internally before we can really show up authentically. I see a lot of people pleasers looking to get the affirmation from someone else, when really if they had confidence in their body and confidence in their work, they wouldn't need it so much. So a lot of that is like untraining ourselves and re-coaching ourselves and giving ourselves different options. One thing I want to, kind of that joke about, bring wine to your compliance date with your friend. We have times of days and days of weeks where we feel a lot better than we usually do. And I really want you to think about when those times are and prioritize the hard stuff during that. If you really feel like you can get some brain space from 3 to 5, make your time to get stuff done during 3 to 5. And we are ever-changing humans and ever-changing bodies. So continue to ask yourself, when do I feel most motivated? In the summer, the sun stays out till 10 o'clock at night, so I can work late sometimes, and I take slow mornings. So that's kind of going back to the last question.
Perfect. So I'm just going to throw this out there real quick for, I think, Andrew Cuscetto. I do see your question. I'm not totally clear on the intent of that. So if you want to put a little bit more context, then I'm happy to throw that out to Maddy. And then for my next question I'm going to ask, how do you recommend approaching an employee or teammate or friend or family member that you may believe is suffering from burnout? Is that your job? Is there a way to do that? Or what do you recommend?
Love that. I found leading by example is the most effective way. When people see me take care of myself, my inner circle gets a little like, oh, well, I don't want to get left behind. I want to take care of myself too. Again, you want to respect people and where they are. A lot of what we just talked about is really, really hard for a lot of people to talk about. And I'm sure you can think of a couple of people who do not want to turn inward, do not want to get into their bodies, do not want to do the hard work. I think to be the best entrepreneur you can, you got to do the hard work. It's not always your place to tell someone they're burnt out, but what you can do is invite them on a walk. And you talk about some of the things that have been really helpful for you. I mean, I just talk openly. I haven't drank in 8 years. I talk about that. So if anyone is in the room that maybe thinks they have a drinking problem, they want to talk to me about that. I say I've done a lot of body work, and it's really helped me become in touch with how I sleep and how I wake up and where I feel. And people are interested in it. So as opposed to shoving it down people's throats, not that you would, leading by example is one of the best. And again, we're all on our own journey, and that is really important to respect as well. But if they're an employee, I would think about your vacation policy. I'd think about how you're asking your teammates to work. The reason I've been able to do this over these years and maintain the kind of sanity that I have is because Alan and Michael have never asked me where I am on a Tuesday afternoon. We have completely flexible work schedules and unlimited vacation. And guess what that gives me? Ample opportunity to plan for myself and be the best Maddy. So if you're an employee wondering about burnout and you only give 12 days of vacation, I would up the ante a bit.
So helpful. If you are in lean launch mode, what advice can you give for tasks that you hate but you can't afford to outsource yet?
Stomach them and then outsource them. The kind of upfront investment you can make early on. And again, you should be going into this with a nice safety net, and you should be going into this with a nice runway where devoting a couple thousands of dollars to get a VA or someone who can manage your marketing will save you so much time in the long run. Otherwise, you got to stomach it and just maximize your schedule to do it when you need to do it. But again, the advisors I see most successful are the ones that take those things and say, no, I'm not going to do that. And they get someone else to do it.
Great. Let's see, we got a response from Andrew. So his first question is, additionally, often fit is expressed as you are trying to be something you're not, but what if you're trying to be something you are? My job is now one of the most stressful of my career, but I'm also learning things I have avoided for years. He added to say, when is stress, difficulty, places where I'm pushing myself called for? I'm definitely overdoing it now, but I'm also engaging parts of myself I never have before.
Beautiful. I love hearing that. Play with that. Again, give yourself permission to not do stuff that you've been doing for the past 15 years. Try things differently. You're finally in the driver's seat. I really am encouraged to hear that you're finding, I mean, what's so beautiful is that we're evolving creatures. We're different Maddies. We're different people every couple years. And think about what's most important. It sounds like a broken record, but you got to prioritize. And if you say it's the most stressful, there are parts of your job you can avoid, pivot from, or outsource.
Great. And then what recommendations do you have for new solo advisors? I know we've got a lot of strategies at AM, but maybe you pick one thing that you really want someone to take home.
For new advisors?
New solo.
New solos. I won't say join XYPN explicitly, but that is the subtext, because it gives you access to a community. A community is what's going to keep you alive. We are creatures that are seeking connection. You need validation. You need understanding. You need a community that tells you that what you're doing has routes to success. So do not work alone in a basement with no windows, and hope for the best. I really encourage you to get out there and network. If you're not ready for XY, come to some of our non-member events like this one. And early on, do that matrix. What do you hate? What do you love? What are you good at? And what are you bad at? And build your firm around the side of the stuff you love doing.
Perfect. You touched on this a little bit during the presentation, but what are some early signs of burnout that people can help them identify if they're headed that direction?
Mm-hmm. Sleep, how much you want of it, how much you are doing of it. I see appetite come and go if I'm stressed. Brain fog. I feel like I lose words sometimes. I can't keep things straight. I'm in a meeting and I say something. I'm like, oh no, that was for a different meeting. My handwriting goes away. I keep notes constantly, and all of a sudden I'm writing scribbles because I just it's not processing. But again, that's my lifelong journey, is to learn myself and to learn that when I feel a certain way, that means I either need to combat it right away or just know that soon I'm going to need to do some larger recovery. Okay. Folks, you can always email me, Maddy@xyplanningnetwork.com. I really hope to see all of you at XYPN here shortly. or in your future. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Maddie. So I'm just going to add one thing. If you are interested in having a conversation with me or another member of the sales team, we are going to put a link in the chat to schedule that time to visit. We would love to visit with you. Also, if you don't mind, if you'll click back to the lobby when you exit, you're going to see a feedback survey that'll pop up. We would absolutely love to get feedback from you all. So thank you so much for your time today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, folks.